We had a week. This was election week. And I'm shifting gears this week to talk about something that feels particularly timely, depending on who you are, how you voted, and all of that. Now, I'm late to the game when it comes to this offering that I'm going to be discussing. Some of you out there already know the deal and likely have known for some time, and I did too. It had taken me a while to try to get into this situation I'm going to discuss. I don't know what else I can say that hasn't already been said, but I'm gonna do my darndest to just share what I think about Andor. Let's discuss. So, as I said at the top of this video, depending on who you are and how you voted in this year's presidential election, you might feel that Andor, as an entity, as an idea, is comforting. It's the right show for right now. So this show's a couple years old, as you know, and it came out at a interesting time because there were other things that I think people were probably also excited about, probably more excited about, like the House of the Dragon, for instance, which was coming on around the same time, and also it was released on the heels of the Obi-Wan Kenobi television show. And if you've been following this channel with any degree of regularity, you know that there are certain examples, certain instances where I choose to talk about shows, streaming or otherwise. And I generally do them. I see something that I'm passionate about it, and I want to talk about it with regard to that project. And oftentimes there's some sort of cinematic spin on it that I want to try to tackle. But I think the case is the same for Andor. But I think right now it felt right to talk about the show. First of all, I hadn't again, I'm late to the game. I tried to watch the show maybe 3 or 4 of the times and couldn't get through the first maybe 2 episodes. I kept falling asleep. Also, this is probably had a lot to do with when I watched it. It was probably late at night. And in any event, I was excited about the prospect of the show because I loved Rogue One. I was a huge fan of Rogue One. I think it's easily one of the still to this day one of the strongest Star Wars films ever made outside of Empire Strikes Back, which to me is still the best of all Star Wars films. So I love that movie. And so when I heard that Andor was going to get a show, it initially was going to be like, all right, well, let's see what that's about. Andor wasn't the main character of Rogue One. So there's immediate interest around how they're going to treat this character and what they're going to do with him. And the other thing that intrigued me about it was the notion of, the on the ground Star Wars story, which is what I've been talking about for ages. Look, everybody loves the Jedi and we love bounty hunters and all that stuff, all this stuff is great. And Sith Lords and Emperors and all these things. It's fantastic. These things are classic Star Wars things. However, if this story takes place in a galaxy far, far away, the galaxy is quite large. There are a lot of planets, a lot of solar systems and star systems and things in there. Aren't there stories about other people who are doing stuff in the midst of these major galactic wars? When you look at something like the Cantina scene from A New Hope, and how diverse that sequence is. So many different creatures, so many different aliens and different entities in that cantina. Any one of them could have had a story. And this is just on Tatooine. So if you take that premise, that idea, and expand it, why weren't there stories told from other perspectives sooner? This is what I'm saying. I mean, look, and so I'm glad that Andor is one representation of stories, of a story that's told from other perspectives. This is a story about the regular people who are on the ground, the people who make it possible for someone like Luke Skywalker to do what he does. And having seen the show, I just finished it this week, or leading into this week, finished it, and I started watching it again. And then I started watching it a third time. So I'm in the middle of my third watch of the show. It is so good. So good. It could have been, I think you could have made a movie of this. You could have made a series of a film series of Andor. So many rich characters, so much great writing, and just a lot of depth and richness that it's really good. So yeah, I'm a fan. I love it. Again, the reason I mentioned that, depending on who you are, Andor might be the show that comforts you in this time we're living in, following the presidential election, is because the show, and this is not new. You look at the idea that there are all these comparisons to Star Wars characters, and this was happened when Barack Obama was in office too, and then when he left office, and then Trump got in the first time, there were tons of Star Wars memes all over the place, as you know, as a talking point for what the state of the government was in, and how Star Wars seemed to speak to that. And I think Andor fits, it's right in line with that, because it deals with not just the idea of rebellion, but what it takes to build a rebellion, and the psychology of what it is to rebel against oppression or whatever it is. And again, depending on who you are, you might feel like a Trump administration is a form of oppression, and then you might be someone who takes the side of the rebels as we know them, who wants to fight that oppression. It's just weird. It's really interesting. You could argue that Andor is a show that could have come out right now and would have felt right in line with everything that's happening socially, politically, and internally, depending on who you are. Again, it's 2 years old, and you could make a case that the show means a lot more now than it did a couple years ago. But again, it's fantastic. My favorite things about the show, obviously, I mentioned, I talk about this in a lot of these videos. The writing, as a writer, I love when dialogue can be charged and electric and feel alive, and it's just as much of an action sequence as it is if you had two characters with weapons fighting each other. There are several sequences like that in this show, but there's one in particular with characters from the ISB. They're the members of the sort of antagonist side who work for the Empire, and they are going back and forth in what is essentially a glorified staff meeting, publicly in this forum. And if you've seen the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a conversation between Deidre Miro and Ben Bailey Smith's Lieutenant Blevin, and it's in front of the whole staff, and it is fantastic. They're just going back and forth, and you would think that it's boring because they're just talking, but the conversation is so charged and everything is so pointed. You get the sense when you're watching the show that everything is nothing is wasted. Every line of dialogue is purposeful, and everything has impact. And it's the same is true for characters and their motivations, their actions, and the repercussions of those actions. And how every time a character makes a decision and something happens as a result of that decision, the result has this cascading effect on other characters. So because you did this thing, this other character somewhere else in this other room or other planet or whatever it is, and literally other planets are affected by what you did at this other planet. And everything ties loosely back into this core. There's like this nucleus of the story, the nucleus. And something happens and it goes right back here. And then this character makes another decision and it goes here. And another character makes a decision and then it goes here. Everything ties back into the nucleus of the story. And that's also what makes it awesome, because it's all organic. Like nothing feels like it comes out of left field. Every decision, every character motivation, every line of dialogue, every plot point is intentional, well thought out, and well executed. And then that's it. That's why the show is awesome. just on principle, it's awesome. The bonus things you have, obviously, Diego Luna is fantastic in the show, but he's backed by a stacked, triple stacked, quadruple stacked cast of actors that are all fantastic. Every side character is fantastic. Every secondary character is fantastic. And it just makes it that much more awesome. I single out Stellan Skarsgård and, of course, Andy Serkis. And I think probably more than... It's hard. I don't know if I would say more than, but I think just as impactful is Genevieve O'Reilly as Mon Mothma. And many of us know the character of Mon Mothma from Return of the Jedi. And then if you've seen Rogue One, obviously you know she makes an appearance in Rogue One. And you might know she made an appearance in Revenge of the Sith. What an opportunity it is for Genevieve O'Reilly to play this character, having played the character now for an extended period of time, and get to give her some richness and depth. And a lot of this is due, obviously, to the writing and the fact that there was so much more fleshed out for the character. Tony Gilroy, who I remember from the Bourne series, he's done something so masterful with the conception of the show as an extension of Rogue One, which is the political intrigue. It felt very much like something from House of Cards, or even, House of the Dragon / Game of Thrones, or anything that has this sort of shady backdoor deals where it really shows you recognizable politics. Oh yeah, this stuff takes place in a galaxy far, far away, but it's recognizable. We know what this looks like because you've seen it in something like The Bourne Identity, or you've seen it in something like 24, for instance. If you know that show, another fantastic show. If you've seen it there, you've seen it in anything that has politicians, people making decisions, good people trying to do good things and having to face obstacles that require them to do bad things to justify the ends, which ultimately is good. And I think that's one of the greatest things about the show, is that element that you have Mon Mothma, who is generally a good person. She's trying to do everything by the book correctly, but she's finding it difficult to get things done. And she has to resort to questionable things and questionable decisions to do that. It's very much like Rhaenyra from House of the Dragon. She's trying to be a good ruler, like her father, but ultimately she recognizes that she can't move like Viserys, because that will lead to her destruction as a leader. She has to be a little bit more cutthroat. She has to be ruthless. And I think you start to see the things that Mon has to do. She obviously can't do it all, which is she can do some things, but she has to, using her position as cover for some of the other things she has to do, like work with Stellan Skarsgård's character, Luthen, who is also playing double roles. But he's also, it's very clear though, he understands why he's doing that. The reason he's leading a rebellion that's going to be something serious. He has to do arguably much more questionable things to further his aim. And it's just rich stuff. You can tell he has feelings about what he's doing, but his feelings come secondary to what the ultimate goal is. And it's just really good stuff. And he's just such a great character, very well written. Again, and especially, and then you can't talk about him without talking about Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis has probably one of the stronger arcs in the whole show, and he's only around for 3 episodes, but you really feel for him. He really makes an impact. And if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen him, watch the show for Andy Serkis. Because he's fantastic. And really, when you think about it, are you surprised? You shouldn't be. This is Gollum. This is King Kong. This is Caesar from Planet of the Apes. Andy Serkis is ridiculous. He's legendary. And his talents are on display fully in this show. Yeah, and again, how the themes of rebellion, the psychology of rebellion, the ethos of what it is to fight for something that's larger than you. This takes a lot of the things that we know from the Star Wars story, particularly when it comes to people like Han Solo, who starts out very selfish in A New Hope, and then he learns to not be selfish and be much more selfless. You know, he was a smuggler, but he was a great pilot, and he's got a great arc too. I think if you look at it, Cassian Andor's character arc is not that different from Han's, in that he's much more about survival. He doesn't like the Empire either, but it's about, I'm trying to stay alive, do whatever I want. He doesn't really care about the cause at first. But obviously, as we know, if you've seen Rogue One, you know he comes to care about the cause. It's the Han Solo arc, but much more grounded and much more layered and deeper and expanded. You get to know more about Andor's history, where he comes from, his family dynamics. You get to see more what he's about. And that was one of the concerns I think I had going in. How are you going to flesh this guy out in a way that makes him feel more? He was a fairly compelling character in Rogue One, but this does a masterful job at building him out further and giving him more depth in a way that doesn't sacrifice the essence of the character, and gives us other characters, new characters for this situation, to help us understand more fully who he is and how he got to be the Cassian Andor we know from Rogue One. It's fantastic. Anyway, I think that's it. I'm rambling too much about it. Obviously, I'm a fan of the show. I think it's great. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's a beautiful looking show. The cinematography is fantastic. You can feel the real on screen. The locations feel real because they are real, to my understanding. My understanding is they shot this on location, it really lends a lot to the authenticity of the show. What things look like, how tactile things are, in a way that you don't feel it in the same way from some of the other Disney Plus shows. And that's saying a lot, I think, for a show that has scenes and things that take place on other planets. It's really well done visually. Looks beautiful. It's well put together from a technical perspective. It's well acted, well written, and it's a nice package. It's really cool. If you're watching this video, you probably already know Andor is you already know the show. You've probably seen it. I'm new, coming to it, and I can't get enough of it. I don't even know if I'm waiting for season two as much as everyone else is. I mean, I'm curious to see what they'll do, but I think season one was so great. I almost don't want to see season two. I think you could just leave it there. You could actually just watch Andor and go straight to Rogue One, and that's it. Like I suspect they'll probably find a way to make season two tie more closely into Rogue One. But again, I don't know if it's necessary. And you know me, you know how I feel about prequels. I have issues with them sometimes, but this is an example when it's done well. And I think was my issue with The Rings of Power. As a prequel story, again, it looks good, but I don't know that it reaches the same level as the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films. I think Andor, on the other hand, does match the greatness of Rogue One. Like as a prequel of a prequel, I don't think that's the kind of prequel you want. If you could get prequels made in the same way that it's done here, I think I'd have less problems with them. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. If you're still here after watching this rant video, thank you for taking the time to watch. And I hope you're doing well. I'll be back in the next one. Come on back. We got some more reviews coming up. We're well into the November now. So, hey, we're moving towards the holidays. So we got a slate coming up for those. So stay tuned. All right. I'm out of here. I'll see you next time.